Thank you to all of you for staying to the bitter end. This has been an amazing conference, and I think I've certainly learned a lot listening to our esteemed speakers, and I hope you have too. And I'm just going to add my 2 cents to the mix. So people ask me today, are you optimistic? How do you feel about the situation, the post-election era in the United States? And I said that I've been saying that I have very mixed feelings because I'm quite frightened about the next 60 days. And beyond that, I think that we have ample reason for optimism. And I'll just set out the 2 concepts in a little greater detail now, which is that today we have a situation on the ground with the Obama administration in its final days where we face the real danger of the United States carrying through on Obama's veiled threats to act against Israel at the UN Security Council. And he can do this. I mean, he is very popular as he leaves office with over 50% approval rating. He has strong support, indeed wall-to-wall support in the US media. And so it's very possible, and I think that it's very important for the government to be operating under the assumption that this, in fact, is likely to happen. Indeed, such is the concern of the government that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the unprecedented step of forbidding his cabinet ministers from having any contact with the incoming Trump administration, which is, shows the depths of the concerns. And indeed, the incoming Trump administration, the transition team, took the exceptional move of having former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, actually warning the Obama administration not to take such actions which stand in conflict and contradict the positions of the incoming Trump administration about how the United States should be behaving towards Israel in the Security Council. So this, I think, is a very great concern, and it's a reason to have some anxiety right now for the next 60 days. Now, what about the incoming Trump administration? Well, you know, there hasn't been a lot of clarity about the direction that the Trump administration is going to be taking vis-a-vis Israel specifically, or the Middle East more widely, and that makes sense because, as you've heard from so many of the speakers who have spoken to you today, the situation here in the Middle East really is a mess. The legacy of the Obama administration is a vastly diminished American profile here in the region, and the empowerment of America's greatest foes, as well as of its competitor, Russia, here in the region. But while it's clear that they shouldn't be in a hurry to be pronouncing their policies, it's also clear from both the people that President-elect Donald Trump has surrounded himself with, and also from the music coming out of his campaign and now his transition team, that there are a lot of reasons to be encouraged about what the future bodes for the Middle East generally and for Israel specifically from the incoming Trump administration. What that music and what that personnel really signals to us is that the incoming administration doesn't suffer from the messianism that really informed the decision-making, the Middle East policies of the Bush administration, nor the radicalism that has characterized so much of the Obama administration's policies in the Middle East. A lot of people have had a problem or been concerned about the America First slogan. That's kind of the concept, the guiding concept of the Trump administration that's coming in. But really, what that means, as so many of the incoming president's advisors and he himself had made clear, is that what the United States seeks to do today is to advance first and foremost America's interests in through its foreign policy. And those interests, broadly stated, are to destroy ISIS and fight jihadist elements here in the Middle East in order to prevent them from attacking in the West, attacking in the United States and throughout the world, to block Iran's hegemonic rise or turn it back since it's already risen, through, among other things, preventing it from fielding a nuclear arsenal. And finally, ensuring the freedom of commerce in the waterways of the Middle East, whether it's through the Suez Canal or the Straits of Hormuz or the Bab el-Mandab. All of these things that involve promoting America's national security interests will actually redound to the benefit of the Middle East as a whole, and it certainly will redound to strengthening the American alliance with Israel. This is true for two reasons. One is that Israel is actually, in securing our own interests, securing those of the United States as well. Indeed, Israel's national security interests, fighting jihadists who threaten us, preventing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction in the region, first and foremost preventing Iranian acquisition of nuclear weapons. These are, of course, part and parcel of America's primary interests in the Middle East. And there's another reason why strengthening America's alliance with Israel at this time is extremely important for the United States going forward in securing its own aims. And to understand what it is about strengthening America's alliance with Israel that's so essential to the United States being able to secure its goals in the Middle East, to advance America's core interests here, and generally speaking, one look no further than Russia's rise in the Middle East. Today we have leaders of almost every state in this region beating a path to Moscow to meet with President Putin. Now, the basis of Putin's rise in the region, interestingly enough, is that he has formed an alliance and has stood by the most hated leader in the Middle East, the most hated regime in the Middle East, or at least in the Arab world. Of course, that would be the Assad regime in Syria. The Assad regime in Syria is viewed by members of the Arab League as a whole as a treacherous regime that has opened up the Arab world to Shiite and Iranian hegemonic aspirations, has advanced them to the detriment of the Sunni Arab states throughout the Middle East. There really is no one Arab leader that is hated more by most Arab leaders than Assad, and that includes, of course, Israel. And yet, rather than opposing Russia for standing by this hated regime and this hated leader, the Arab world respects Putin for doing that. The countries of the world respect Putin for having done this, and they do so because it means that he does what he says he's going to do. It means that he sticks with his allies. It means that his word is meaningful and they can trust it. This, of course, is something that the United States also needs. America's credibility as an ally has suffered a massive blow over the past 8 years, if not longer. And part and parcel of the Americans' rising lack of credibility in the region is the perception among the Arab world that the United States has turned its back on its alliance with Israel. That is, that whereas Obama thought, and to a lesser degree, but still, President George W. Bush thought that by putting pressure on Israel and showing the United States to not stand by Israel in certain respects and regards, or in Obama's case, in just about all of them, that the United States would win the support of the wider Arab world as well as of the Iranians. And this, of course, has backfired spectacularly on the United States along both administrations. So I think that in advancing America's core interests in the region, it really does, that achieving that aim really does require the United States under the Trump administration to make a clear demonstration that it is fully committed to the U.S. alliance with Israel, and I think that one of the key promises that Trump made in foreign policy during his campaign can actually lead to that occurring. President-elect Trump's promise to move the U.S. embassy to Israel's capital in accordance with U.S. law to Jerusalem is a game changer. And if he goes forward and does this, he is going to take the one action that can fully reinstate the United States' credibility as an ally and do so in one fell swoop. I think that the message that would be sent to America's allies and to America's enemies at the same time is that the United States is back in business, that the United States is a power that has to be reckoned with, and that the United States' word is gold and can be trusted by friend and foe alike. So I think that the very idea that Trump has really been attacked for, that he's going to put America's interests first in his foreign policy, is actually the one policy that will ensure, or should ensure, the expansion of America's strategic alliance with Israel and can really bring about a game-changing situation in the Middle East that both makes the region more secure for the United States and for the nations of this region, and also advances the cause of peace in the region and throughout the world. So I'm scared and I'm optimistic, and I hope that my fears will not be borne out, and I trust that with the help of all people of goodwill, including all of you Jerusalem Post readers, we will move forward boldly and secure our interests together in the region. Thank you very much. Thank you.